Hey guys, Torcus here. So in this video, we are going to be checking out Renekton and the cards that were revealed alongside him. I know I am behind on the card reviews, but we are going to be doing as many as we can to catch up. I know that we're basically done the reveals outside of probably Azir, but we are going to be doing this right now and checking out what we have here, so let's hop right into it. So we have Renekton here, 4 mana, 4/4 with Overwhelm. When I challenge an enemy, give me +2/+1 this round, and I level up when I've dealt 12 plus damage. So obviously he doesn't have Challenger, but there will be ways to give him Challenger. There are stuff in Demacia that's going to be able to do that. There is stuff in Ionia with the Sonic Strike. And most particularly, there's going to be lots of vulnerable synergy in Bilgewater, in Freljord, and in Shurima, which includes his champ spell here. It gives an opponent vulnerable and him some extra stats. So that's pretty sweet. When you do level him up, he will become a 5/5, and he will get the attack effect, give me +3/+3 this round. That is very strong. You know, he's a 6/5 on attack when you do the challenging thing, but this won't require any extra support from your deck to do anything with. You will just require to attack, and then it is an 8/8 on attack. And that is very, very strong. And in addition to that, his level up condition is restoring the Sun Disc. This is the same thing for all of the Ascended champions, of which we only have seen this in Nasus so far. But when he does that, you get this, which is 4 mana, 10/10 Overwhelm, and when I block or attack, deal 2 to enemies and the enemy nexus. So effectively like a Anivia effect, but you can also do it while you're blocking. And it has Overwhelm, so the usage of the effect is much stronger because if you clear your blockers, you get straight through to their nexus. So, you know, this clearly game-ending effect, this body is well enough to, finish your opponent off in 2 hits if everything else has gone wrong so far. If you've not done anything else so far up to that point, then it'll be 2 turns. Otherwise, you're just going to kill them in 1 shot, because that's 12 damage straight up. So that's amazing. That's only going to be generally happening in the mono Shurima deck. I discussed that in the last video where we were talking about the Sun Disc and all that. That's going to be a thing, but I don't think it's going to be necessarily the best place for Renekton. Obviously, he's going to be in that deck. He has to be in that deck. But I think he'll have a lot of potential outside of it because this baseline is still great, in my opinion. You know, a 4 mana Overwhelm is pretty early to be getting stuff rolling with that keyword. The extra stats you get here with this challenge effect means that you can push a ton of damage. If you are combining it with Vulnerable on something small, you could be dealing upwards of 5 damage because, you hit a 1/1 and you got 6 attack. As long as, that's the only thing you've done is just the giving the Vulnerable, then that's 5 damage through a 1/1 blocker. And if he does challenge twice, then that's all you need to get the 12 damage. You could use this or whatever and do 8, and then all you'd have to do is block, and then you've got the 12 damage. So leveling to this would not be very difficult, and after that, every time it's your turn, you're attacking, your opponent's going to have a real hard time dealing with that amount of stats. You're going to keep, bringing the stats back up every time you attack as long as he's not dead yet. So I think he will be great in a lot of different decks. He pairs well with Demacia, which lets you strike to level him up faster. Potentially, you know, synergizes well with a lot of the stuff that they have going on there. I think he'll do well in Noxus, where you can pair the Shurima vulnerable stuff with their other Overwhelm units, and you can make it a very aggressive archetype. You know, maybe Darius and Renekton would be a pretty sweet combo. I think he could activate the Darius quite easily with the amount of damage he'll be putting onto your opponent's face. So really, really cool. I'm excited to try him out. I think there's a lot of potential for Renekton as an aggressive unit that will continue to just keep pressuring your opponent. They're going to have to deal with it quite quickly if they want to survive. So I think he's going to be a great champion, and he'll fit into lots of different board-centric decks. His champ spell here is Ruthless Predator. As we just mentioned, 2-mana burst spell. Give an ally +2 attack and an enemy vulnerable this round. You can split that, you know, onto any attacker. You don't have to use the attacker who's got the buff to attack the vulnerable one. You could, you know, give something vulnerable, then pull it off with a 1/1 while your bigger unit goes straight to the face. So, you know, it works super well in aggressive strategies, and it works super well with with Overwhelm, as well as, you know, anything that wants to be striking stuff. Being able to do vulnerable is a great form of removal for minion decks where you're mostly just playing a lot of units on board. Then you just use the vulnerable to take out whatever annoying threat you have to deal with. We have a lot of stuff that has very core units, specifically champions right now, like Aphelios TF. You know, if you kill the Aphelios, you kill the TF. They have a lot more trouble after that happens. So I think this card looks very strong. I think, you know, as long as it's in any archetype that really cares about granting vulnerable and pushing damage like that, definitely Overwhelm archetypes like, you know, the Noxus and Shurima deck that I mentioned with Renekton, I think it'll be very good. And it's definitely core to being used with Renekton. I think whenever you get your second Renekton, you're going to be very happy to use this with it. So I think it's very strong. You're definitely going to see it in lots of Shurima decks. Then we have Raz Blood Main, 7 mana, 6/6 fearsome, attack, give enemies -2, -0 this round. This is a pretty expensive unit, but the effect is quite strong. Being able to do a minus attack effect with fearsome is really strong. It's very comparable to the 8 mana 6/5 in Shadow Isles with the Deep Sea Monster. But this does have 1 extra health and comes down 1 turn earlier. So it seems pretty strong for that. It seems like, you know, generally fearsome is pretty aggressive, so it might be hard for you to fit something that hits on 7 like this as a win condition, because this would be, you know, pushing to finish it out. But it is kind of comparable to Cytheria in that, like, you drop your, you know, top end and attack with everything and try and end it out. One turn slower, though, is definitely really rough. But I could see it being your top end for a deck like that. You might be able to make fearsomes just kind of be a little bit slower in an idea like that, as long as it doesn't end up having you be closed out too quickly. But this is such an impactful effect that I think you'd be fine. You might not run too many of them, like maybe you run 1 or 2, but it seems really cool. The only thing, again, is that we might have a lot of other effects that might do something similar to this, and this might not be the best way to get it either. We're going to have some spells that do the same thing. Like even right here, you see Rite of Dominance. Not quite at the same level, but you can just use spell mana on this and then set up for your open attack, or set up for your attack. You can't open attack with this, but you can set up for that. This you can develop the turn before and then open attack. But yeah, it's definitely got some possibility to be in fearsome decks, but it's not a guarantee. There's no guarantee on that front. It's really going to depend. I haven't tried, theory crafting anything yet, but I'll see what things end up looking like. It's definitely got some potential, though. Then we have Bakai Sand Spinner, 4 mana, 5/3, and play grant an enemy -1/-0 and vulnerable. So this doesn't have the best stat line. 5/3, isn't super great. It is a pretty aggressive stat line, but it can die to like get excited, other 3 damage stuff. Definitely like Aphelios' Calibrum is a pretty rough way for it to go, because that's 2 mana loss on that front. But giving things vulnerable is good. Giving them -1 attack permanently is good. It has synergy with some other stuff that we have around. This might be another case of there might not be anything else worth playing if Shurima's just still got a limited card pool and you are doing like mono Shurima or whatnot. Maybe it fits into that. Hard to say. If you have more options, if you are going into a duo region deck, it's much less likely to fit, I think. Like, you'll have access to a lot of other vulnerable effects in Shurima already. Like there is Exhaust over here, which we're gonna cover after, which is better, but this does bundle with a body which has some upside for sure in terms of the value of it all. Overall, I think it's pretty underwhelming for sure, but maybe it fits in the mono Shurima deck. And as we talk about it, the mono Shurima deck might just be poorly affected by the fact that they will not have access to enough options to get things rolling. That might be to its detriment enough that you are just being stuck with cards that you're not as excited about, like this one. But yeah, like it gives you the ability to like trade out with a 3/5 because you turn it into a 2/5. That'd be your best case scenario for this. Although other units can definitely be the ones to be attacking the vulnerable unit. And if you do combine this with some smaller units, you can get 5 damage face. Potentially not that difficult. So yeah, again, it's okay. It's not the most exciting card ever. And then we have a 1 mana 3/1 Bloodthirsty Marauder. Strict buff on the Legion Rearguard, I believe it's called, which is in Noxus and can't block with the same stat line. That used to be a 3/2, but it got nerfed, so now it's comparable to this. I think this, if that was good, I don't think the extra 1 health was so crazy. Like, this being able to block is a much bigger upside on that front in many cases, because you'll be able to have favorable trades with things all the way up to maybe even 4 mana sometimes. Things have 3 health. Definitely 3 drops you can trade out with. So that seems really good in any Shurima aggressive deck. It'll probably make sense. There might be some better options for 1-drops in whatever region you pair with, But if there's not, then you're going to go for this one. So I think it'll definitely see some play in some sort of Shurima aggro deck, whichever region decides to do that and can't really hold up the 1-drops above this one. This one will fit in there. And I think that'll definitely be the case. Then we have Rite of Dominance, 4 mana, fast speed spell, kill an ally or destroy one of your mana gems to give all enemies -2/-0 this round. So you can kill an ally or destroy a mana gem. It gives you some flexibility there, because if you kill an ally, it is fizzleable. You can have your ally die before this gets to kill it, and then it would not work. Same way, you know, with Glimpse from Beyond or whatever. When you try to kill your own unit and they kill yours first, you don't get the effect. So you can destroy your mana gem instead to ensure that it goes off. Destroying your mana gem is a really big price earlier in the game, but the later it goes, the less relevant it becomes. And to the point where at 10 mana, it's not a downside anymore, because you're just going to regain it back again the next turn. I think, you know, this has quite a bit of synergy with the, you know, Nasus stuff, since they like to slay things. You can kill your own stuff off, and it does do really well at stopping your opponent from dealing too much damage to you on their open attacks and stuff like that, or any attacks really, if you can't deal with them before they get to do so. So that seems pretty sweet. I don't know if it's going to fit in much, whether it's going to need to have that really good kill synergy. Like, you could run this in a slower Shurima deck, and they might have a few smaller stuff, like if you're playing in Shadow Isles, you have some spiders off of your Vile Feasts or Hapless Aristocrats or whatnot. But also in a Undying deck, I know a lot of people are excited about Undying potentially pairing really well with Shurima. You could kill off your Undying, and then your opponent doesn't get to do very much damage. So as long as your opponent can't fizzle your effect, those things sound really good. And I think most decks that do push a lot of damage with their board won't have ways to deal with killing the stuff that you're sacking with this. So yeah, I think it'll probably find a place. I think Undying has a decent chance of happening with the amount of support it's getting, because it's getting a lot of support to the point that you can't run all of it. You're going to have to make some choices on what type of Undying deck you're going to do. But it's definitely an exciting prospect. And, you know, anything that can slow down aggro is probably something you're going to want to try. Your second region is going to need a lot of clears if you don't have this kind of stuff in there. And probably even though you do have this, you can do both. Like, that'll be a lot better to have redundancy and a lot of ways to survive. Because Shurima so far doesn't really have any board clears for the most part. Doesn't really have any ways to deal with wide boards. This is just, all you can really do is just stall. So, as a stall effect, definitely looks solid. I think it'll see play somewhere, either a slower deck, an Undying deck, something that synergizes with killing your allies. Definitely going to need to be killing allies at least some of the time, because destroying your mana gem as the cost every time is not going to work. If that ends up being the case, where your deck can't support just killing your allies in the majority of cases, then it probably won't end up being run in that deck, and it'll have to get cut. Then we have Quicksand. This is a 3-mana burst speed spell. Give an enemy -4/-0 and disable its keywords, excluding any negative keywords, this round. So this is very comparable to Hush. I've seen a lot of people comparing it to Hush because it does disable their keywords. That is similar to Silence. It just doesn't get rid of their stats, but you are removing 4 attack from them. This is slightly better in this way because it does affect base stats, but you don't get rid of any extra health that it gets and all that kind of a thing, and doesn't get rid of any text that the card might have. Neither of those are going to be too important in a few cases. You know, this is pretty great as a defensive card. Hush, you know, more a removal tool sometimes because they might have a bunch of buffed up health and then you can get rid of it and take them out that way. But this is better on, like, dealing with overwhelm threats, like you play this on Darius and then it's like a, you know, 6 attack non-overwhelm unit all of a sudden, which is much less scary. You can use it on elusives, you can use it on fearsomes, all these different things with combat keywords that are really scary. So I think it'll be quite good. I don't know if you're going to be running 3 copies or whatnot as we had with Hush at its peak. Now we have like 2 Hushes per deck or whatever now that it is at 3 mana, similar to this. So I think this is generally weaker than Hush, but just because it's not as strong as Hush doesn't mean it's not playable. I think you can definitely fit 1 or 2 copies into a lot of Shurima decks. And as I've said with previous cards, in a more limited card pool, you're not going to have as many choices. So this might just end up fitting into decks just for that reason. And I don't think you'll be too upset about that. Then we have Unworthy, 2 mana slow speed spell. Give an enemy follower -4, -0 this round. If you have fewer mana gems than your opponent, kill it instead. So the base effect is really, really weak. We have multiple 2 mana cards that, you know, frostbite things in Freljord. So those are definitely better than this. And if you're doing the fewer mana gem thing, you're either going to have to destroy your own mana gems, which we have 2 ways to do. Right of Dominance, and there's another card, which is the tutor out one of your champion cards for 0 mana. Or you have to be getting ramped by your opponent, which is meaning that they're only gonna, it's only Freljord that does that. And, you know, maybe you're thinking Freljord's super popular, you want to do something like this because that's the case. But honestly, even if they do, even if ramp is very popular, even if you are running these destroy mana gem things, you really don't want to be destroying your mana gems in the majority of cases. You want to be killing the ally. And then if you do it just so you can do this, like, the payoff is probably not going to be enough. It can only target followers, and you might not even be able to trigger the mana gem effect when you need to play this. So it's just, like, it's slow. There's just so many reasons not to do this. Like, hitting They Endure or some gigantic follower for 2 mana as an instant removal sounds great. But, you know, in the majority of cases, that's not going to be what happened. It's going to definitely not be all that you want it to be. I think this card is not going to see any play anywhere unless we have a very, very specific meta that is very follower heavy, probably ramp heavy, and potentially you're running all 6 copies of these mana gem destroying effects, and you're happy to use it in the matchups that you expect to be needing this for. Like, it's a lot of things to ask. Like, even in that case, you end up in one-on-one matchup where you don't have that going for you, and then it's such garbage. Like, it's really, really bad. The last card is Exhaust. This is a 1-mana focus card. Focus is gem speed. So you play it at burst speed on your turn, but you can't play it in reaction to anything. Give an enemy -2, -0, and vulnerable this round. So you play this to set up for your attack. You can use this well with Renekton, so you can make sure that you have a vulnerable target to challenge for him. You know, we've never had a gem speed card runnable in a deck before. Normally they're generated off of stuff. And as far as I've seen, it doesn't look like there's going to be any other focus cards this expansion. But the idea is really cool. I don't know if it's going to be high enough value to be playing, but the effect is definitely really good. In a tempo-oriented deck where you care less about value, like you can chuck one extra card in there, and you care more about tempo on board, I think it'll make a lot of sense. I think in a Renekton deck, this will work really well. There's some Demacia stuff that's going to really like this kind of thing when you could combine Renekton and Shurima with Demacia. So I think it's got a lot of potential. It's just going to matter whether this focus thing is too much of a detriment, whether you want to be running focus cards in your deck. But I'm going to go on a limb and say you do. I'm going to say that this probably is going to be in every Renekton deck, and potentially in quite a few other Shurima decks as well. We'll end up seeing with that. And that's going to be it for this pool of cards. Renekton looks really sweet. The ideas that I've got for using him, I'm really excited. He is totally my style of champion, so I'm going to be playing him pretty early on, I imagine. So please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Comment down below what you think of these new cards and Renekton. And please subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content in the future. And I'll see you guys in the next one.